In tonight's headlines, 6 people are arrested under the new domestic national security law for the first time for allegedly publishing seditious materials. One day after shelving the waste charging scheme, the government says it has not given up on it. And Shanghai rolls out stimulus measures to help home buyers in a bid to boost the property market.
Hong Kong police today made their first round of arrests under the city's new domestic security law, commonly known as Article 23, which was enacted in March. The National Security Department detained 5 women and 1 man aged between 37 to 65 on suspicion of acting with seditious intention. According to the police statement, one of the arrestees was a woman already in custody at the Tai Lam Center for Women, who was alleged to have continuously published anonymous seditious posts on a social media page with the help of the other 5. Police searched their homes and seized some electronic devices. The posts were said to have made use of an upcoming sensitive date to incite hatred against the central and Hong Kong government, as well as the judiciary. Police also alleged that the post intended to incite netizens to organize or participate in illegal activities at a later time. Secretary for Security Chris Tan confirmed the female arrestee is rights activist Chow Han Tong, who has been detained since September 2021 under the national security law. But he stopped short of saying if the sensitive date is related to the June 4th, stressing the date itself was not important.
I would like to reiterate that it's not the main crime is not about the subject. It's about they're utilizing the subject, and during which they make incited hatred against the central government and our Hong Kong government and the judiciary. And this incitement of hatred is the cause of the crime.
He also reminded the public not to delude themselves to think that they can evade police investigation by posting online anonymously. Under the law, the maximum penalty for sedition is 7-year imprisonment. The arrest came a week before the 35th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square incident. The Victoria Park vigil was banned in 2021, and no official commemorations were held since. Anna Chan, Cable News.
The government stressed that it is not given up on the concept of waste charging, but will reintroduce the scheme when it is optimized and public sentiment is more favorable. The government announced on Monday that it will indefinitely shelve the twice postponed waste charging scheme originally planned to roll out on August 1st, after a trial run was marred by public confusion, concerns about affordability, and low participation rates. Taken to the airwaves, Secretary for Environment and Ecology Cai Ching-wan said, "It is not appropriate to set a timeline for the scheme. Our society has to be mature enough to accept this approach. Also, when the policy is introduced, its design has to be easy and accepted by the public, and be straightforward for frontline workers," Cai said. But he also reiterated that the government is not giving up on this concept. He said the government will expand efforts on waste reduction and recycling, as well as promotion, and they will also find ways to enhance the scheme, gauge public sentiment, and see whether the conditions are favorable to reintroduce waste charging. Cai added that the scheme may be rolled out in phases if officials decided to reintroduce it in future, so that it'll be more easily received by the public. Quentin Yan, Cable News. The Environmental Protection Department stated that retailers have already stopped selling the designated plastic bags and will start recalling the bags sold in the convenience stores. Starting next month, the designated bags will be distributed to eligible residents free of charge. The department added that there are about 170 million various-sized bags still in storage, and will coordinate with suppliers to produce the bags based on reserves and future needs. It pointed out that they do not have a mandated monthly production. Christine Low, former Deputy Environment Chief, said, "Personally, she's disappointed for the postponement in rolling out the pay-as-you-throw scheme. The results of trial runs showed that some citizens did not totally understand the scheme," she said, and added that she agreed that more education is needed. On the other hand, she also said a lot of people are ready for the scheme, and the city should be encouraged and right on this to continue promoting. Since the passage of the waste charging legislation, the government has spent a total of $177 million in public funds over the past 3 fiscal years to implement and promote it, of which $30 million was used for publicity and promotion. The authorities originally estimated that it will bring in $179 million of return in the first fiscal year and level out the cost. Lawmaker Edward Lau, who chairs LegCo's panel on environmental affairs, said the investment is still helpful in promoting waste reduction and the government should continue to invest. He said the original intent of the entire legislation was about waste reduction and recycling, so the prior investment was not totally meaningless, and the government should continue to promote the education and publicity on waste reduction and recycling. Quentin Yan, Cable News.
Bombing overnight left the Rafah tent camp in rubble. Charred cars and tents reduced to ashes is what is left after an Israeli airstrike targeted the camp full of displaced Palestinians in the Gaza southern city. Survivors said families were preparing to sleep when the strike hit and triggered a fire late Sunday, which killed at least 45 people. Witnesses described a horrific scene at a location designated by Israel as a humanitarian area. This resident lost his daughter, sister, brother-in-law, and all his family members were injured. People rushed to the medical center to identify loved ones. Some bodies were burned beyond recognition. Most of the dead and dozens of wounded were women, children, and elderly people. The field hospital was running out of stretchers and medical supplies. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel was investigating the strike, which had not been intended to cause civilian casualties, and that it was a tragic mistake. The military stressed that senior Hamas militants were targeted and killed. Thousands of displaced people were sheltering in the makeshift encampment after Israeli forces began a ground offensive in the east of Rafah over 2 weeks ago. The deadly strike came 2 days after the International Court of Justice in The Hague ordered Israel to stop its operation in Rafah immediately. However, the order is binding but not enforceable. The United Nations and the European Union condemned the strike, while Israel's ally, the United States, described the images from the aftermath as devastating and urged Israel to take every precaution to protect civilians. On the eve of the diplomatic recognition of a Palestinian state by Ireland, Norway, and Spain, Madrid's foreign minister issued a demand to Israel to end its continued attacks in Rafah. Anna Chan, Cable News. Footage taken by Japanese broadcaster NHK's camera on the Chinese side of the border with North Korea showed a shining dot rising into the sky from near the Seoul Heat Station last night around 10 p.m. It was later seen bursting into orange flames. North Korea confirmed its latest attempt to launch its second military reconnaissance satellite, Malikan-11, failed after the rocket exploded in mid-air during the first stage of flight. North Korea's aerospace agency said the preliminary conclusion was that the accident could be attributed to the operational reliability of a newly developed liquid oxygen plus petroleum engine. South Korean military patrol ship's surveillance equipment also captured the moment of the explosion with an object falling. This was North Korea's fourth attempt to launch a spy satellite in a year. Pyongyang earlier notified Japan of a plan to launch a satellite sometime before June 4th, prompting the South Korean military to hold drills on Monday in response. After the failed launch, South Korea's Unification Ministry condemned it as a provocation that seriously threatens the peninsula and regional security. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command criticized the launch as a brazen violation of UN Security Council resolutions and said it involved technologies that are directly related to North Korea's banned intercontinental ballistic missile program. The Japanese government called the launch as a serious challenge to the entire world. The attempted launch came hours after leaders of South Korea, China, and Japan wrapped up a trilateral summit in which they called for stern international action if North Korea went ahead with its launch plan. Observers say it is highly unusual for Pyongyang to take provocative action when China is engaging in high-level diplomacy in the region. Anna Chan, Cable News.
Shanghai starts easing requirements for home down payments and mortgages today as bigger Chinese cities follow through on the central government's aid for the property sector. According to the new measures, down payment ratios will be reduced by 10 percentage points to a minimum of 20% for first-time buyers and 30% for second home purchases. The floor for mortgage rates was also lowered, with the minimum 5-year mortgage rate reduced to 3.5% for first homes and 3.9% for second homes. The authority will also allow more non-local residents to own a house in Shanghai. Those who pay taxes to their local authorities for 3 years in a row will now be allowed to buy a flat in Shanghai instead of 5 years. Moreover, households with 2 or more children are now eligible to purchase an additional unit to meet the housing needs of families with more than 1 child. Furthermore, families in difficult housing situations who plan to upgrade to a better property by dumping their existing flat and buying a new home in the primary market will receive a subsidy of up to 30,000 yuan. The relaxation comes less than 2 weeks after the central government rolled out its most forceful rescue package when the central bank unleashed 300 billion yuan of funding to help local governments buy unsold homes. Other first-tier cities are expected to follow suit. Best Learn, Cable News.